Today is Wednesday, January 26th. We have an update to the rising tensions in Eastern Europe. Russia seems to be taking more action, and the U.S. is shopping for fuel. We'll explain. Also, all eyes on the Federal Reserve, what the central bank is expected to announce today, and how it's already impacting the stock market. Plus, one shortage has gotten so bad, American factories could have to shut down. Some changes are coming to key college admissions tests, and who was and wasn't elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Russia is still in a standoff with the United States and NATO over Ukraine, and both sides now seem to be preparing for things to escalate. Russia announced a bunch of military drills all across its country. Those exercises involve tanks and drones, as well as ballistic missiles and other equipment. Thousands of troops are testing their combat skills, and 3 Russia ships are doing drills with a Chinese fleet in the Arabian Sea. Despite all this, Russian leaders say they do not have plans to invade Ukraine. Instead, they say the drills are happening because of the information being spread by the U.S. and NATO. Remember, the U.S. and its allies say a Russian invasion of Ukraine is imminent. Both sides have been trying to talk things through, but those talks have not made a lot of progress. So the U.S. and other NATO countries have been sending troops, weapons, fighter jets, and ships to Ukraine and other allies in the area. Also of note this week, officials from the U.S. and Europe started looking for backup fuel sources. They're worried Russia might cut off natural gas shipments as leverage in this conflict, and that's an issue since Russia provides about a third of Europe's fossil fuel. And since it's the height of winter, this is when Europe needs it most. So the Biden administration says it's working with gas and crude oil suppliers from the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia, so Europe can at least have a backup plan. The U.S. is hoping once European allies get some reassurance about their energy supplies, they'll be more willing to punish Russia should it actually invade Ukraine. That could mean limiting exports or cutting Russian banks off from the international banking system. Also, just knowing there are backup fuel options could put pressure on Russia, since oil and gas sales make up a huge part of the country's revenue. But for now, these plans seem to be in the early stages, so to be continued. Sadly, the number of people dying from COVID-19 in the U.S. is hitting another high. This week, the average number of newly reported COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. reached nearly 2,200 a day. That's the highest level since early last year, before all Americans were eligible for vaccines. And it surpassed the daily averages from the Delta variant surge. As you know, the U.S. is now mostly dealing with Omicron. Even though evidence shows Omicron is less likely to kill the people it infects, the sheer numbers of people getting the disease now means more deaths, too. This variant is more contagious than any other, and the colder winter months make matters worse since more people are spending time indoors where the virus spreads faster. All that said, there is hope things could start getting better soon. Health experts expect the number of deaths to start trending down in a few weeks because of a couple of positive signs. The average number of Americans being newly admitted to the hospital with COVID-19 is starting to trend lower after recent peaks. And some parts of the country, like New York and California, are starting to see a big drop in new cases, too. A new study found some people might be more susceptible than others to what's known as long COVID. Long COVID refers to people who recover from COVID-19 but are left with symptoms even months later. Well, the study found people who go on to develop long COVID have lower levels of certain antibodies in their blood soon after they're infected with the virus. The author of the study says this is a key finding, since it means scientists could someday be able to develop a blood test to figure out a person's risk for long COVID. For now, there is no standard diagnosis or treatment for it, and it's not clear how many people actually have it. Though it's estimated a third of COVID-19 patients may have symptoms for at least a month, and some have lasted for more than a year. Still, there are some caveats to the new research. The study started in April of 2020 and wrapped up in August of last year. So the earliest cases were before people had the option of getting vaccinated. And every case studied was before the Omicron variant took hold. So scientists say more research is needed. Today, investors are paying close attention to the Federal Reserve. The central bank's 2-day meeting wraps up this afternoon. And when it does, the Fed chairman is expected to announce some new policy decisions. For example, its first interest rate hike expected in March. Then more hikes are expected later in the year. This isn't any kind of huge surprise, since the Fed has been saying it plans to roll back stimulus and raise interest rates this year as a way to address decades-high inflation. But it still seems to be stressing investors out, since they don't know how big the rate hikes will be. And many of them are selling off anything they consider a risky asset. So stocks tanked yesterday, then partly recovered, then dropped again. And for the second day in a row, the Dow swung more than 1,000 points from the high to low point. And while most stocks swung back up a bit, all three major indexes ended in the red. Some financial analysts have called this downturn jaw-dropping and worry it could get worse before the week is out. But others say it was bound to happen after stocks climbed so much last year. And some say the recent sell-offs might be the chance to get in the market while it's cheap. So stay tuned. All right, we have much more news coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. As part of my morning routine every day, I take 2 capsules of Seed's Daily Synbiotic. I take it on an empty stomach, as they recommend, and I just love how they make me feel. So this is a pre- and probiotic 2-in-1 capsule. There are 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains, the first of its kind. It's for supporting gut health, skin health, it promotes heart health, and more. As someone who cares about my whole body health, I was looking for the best probiotic on the market a while back. I did quite a bit of research, and I actually found Seed before I even partnered with them. And now I'm excited Seed is a sponsor of the show because after taking the Daily Synbiotic for a while, I've noticed the benefits of this product on my health. I am truly impressed. In fact, I even got my husband to start taking these as well. And I love that you can now get a discount. You can get 15% off your first month's supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by visiting seed.com/newsworthy or by using the code newsworthy at checkout. Again, you can get 15% off your first month's supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by going to seed.com/newsworthy or use the code newsworthy at checkout. A new federal report says the global chip shortage has gotten so bad that some factories might have to shut down. We're talking about various types of computer chips used in everything from cell phones and laptops to cars and medical devices. Well, now the U.S. Commerce Department says some American manufacturing companies that use semiconductors are down to less than a 5-day supply of key chips. To compare, in 2019, companies typically had 8 times that amount. Now the concern is any small disruption could end up rippling through the supply chain. Since so many companies rely on every single shipment that comes in now, if one cannot make it, for whatever reason, American factories could be forced to shut down for weeks. And workers might have to be furloughed, meaning they'll have to stop working and go without pay until the supplies come in. So the Commerce Department is leaning on Congress to help. One bill from the House and another from the Senate would put tens of billions of dollars into expanding chip production here in the United States. There is bipartisan support for that. But there are some differences between the two bills, so lawmakers will have to sort those out if they want to get something to President Biden to become law. That said, even without the government incentives, chip manufacturing is picking up. The White House says chip companies have announced nearly $80 billion in new investments in the U.S. through 2025. A popular fast fashion website is the first to be fined by the Federal Trade Commission for hiding its bad reviews. Fashion Nova agreed to pay $4.2 million to settle those claims with the FTC. The government agency says the affordable fashion site never posted the thousands of bad reviews and ratings that were left on its clothes and accessories from 2015 to 2019, and that it misled consumers. At the time, Fashion Nova was using a review management software that automatically posted only 4- and 5-star reviews. But the company fired back, saying it fixed the issue in 2019 when it became aware, and that the only reason it settled was to avoid the distraction and fees from a legal battle. One of the most popular college entrance exams is going digital. The SAT is going to be all online, shorter, and supposedly simpler. It will now last 2 hours instead of 3. That said, the test still has to be taken inside a school or testing center, not at home. And the test will still be graded on a 1,600-point scale. The test has been criticized in the past, saying the test is biased against lower-income students, like whether or not students can afford the SAT prep classes or if they have access to the internet to research. Experts also point to the cost of standardized tests. This decision also comes as more colleges are ditching entrance exams altogether. The percentage of schools that do not require standardized tests skyrocketed from 45% before the pandemic to nearly 80% now. That's according to the anti-testing group Fair Test. So the College Board, who gives the SAT, said it wants to make the test more relevant. Last year, the College Board pilot tested digital SAT tests. 80% of students said it was less stressful, and 100% of educators called it a positive experience. The new exam will kick off next year for international students and in 2024 for students in the U.S. Former Boston Red Sox star David Ortiz made it into the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was the one and only player inducted this year on his first year of eligibility. He's also the youngest player of all 75 living members at the age of 46. Ortiz says it's an honor to get it on what he called his first rodeo. Meanwhile, Barry Bonds, who is baseball's all-time home run leader, was on his last year of eligibility and missed out. The same goes for Roger Clemens. Both superstars were dogged by rumors they used performance-enhancing drugs. But as for Ortiz, he'll be officially inducted into the Hall of Fame this July. And that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, where we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a message from our sponsor. There are some amazing doctors out there, but really the only ones that matter are the ones who actually take your insurance. With ZocDoc, you can focus on doctors who are in-network, putting you on the path to see the doctors who are right for you. ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. Go to ZocDoc.com, choose a time slot, and whether you want to see the doctor in person or do a video visit, and just like that, you're booked. No more wasting a bunch of time searching online, calling doctors' offices, or asking everyone you know for a recommendation. I've had that experience where I thought I got a great doctor recommendation, only to find out they don't take my insurance, and I was back at square one. With ZocDoc, I know all the options on the list are in-network. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to Work Wednesday. You may have noticed workers at several well-known companies have been jumping on the unionization train lately. Starbucks baristas in Buffalo, New York, and Amazon workers at a couple different locations have recently considered forming a union. But the uptick in companies trying to unionize doesn't really reflect the downward trend of actual union memberships in the United States. That's been happening for more than 4 decades. Statistics from the U.S. Labor Department show in 1983, 20% of employees were part of a union, and by 2021, that number dropped nearly in half to just over 10%. Nearly all that decline has been in the private sector. Some experts say that's likely because many private employers oppose unions. They usually try to convince their workers to vote against them. And labor laws are strongly tilted in favor of employers. To be clear, even though union participation has fallen, labor action has not seen the same drop. For example, last year, union workers at John Deere and Kellogg got the raises and updated benefits they were demanding after strikes. So even as union membership has fallen in recent years, the labor movement's popularity is the highest it's been in decades. All right, thank you so much for joining us here as part of your daily routine. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.